I have a theory that Behavior leaked those IPs on purpose, just because they can. If I spent 3 months building a killer only to get hit with a meme from 2011, I'd be pretty resentful too. And the community only chose that because the usual suspects of shirtless and is the entity didn't apply. A Portrait of a Murder is one of the more creatively intriguing Dead by Daylight chapters. The vibes hit and I like the aesthetic, even if it feels like the backstory is trying way too hard to justify itself. This killer is an artist in the same way that Amaranth is the manager of a gas station. It's technically a fact, but not exactly what comes to mind. Here's my easy guide to the artist's lore. This is what she was like before the entity got her.
Those fascists will never stop the power of expression.
And then just like... The artist is a killer who excels in short-range chases and long-range map control, which is realistically the only 2 categories a killer can have, so I'd say she's pretty powerful. We're talking old spirit standing there and still winning kinda stuff. The PTB did just come out, so when I mention things like power, read into it the same way you'd read the Bible. Take some of it as a metaphor and the other half wondering what the fuck is wrong with the author. Her ability lets her summon these phantom crows, up to 3, which you can then trigger to shoot forward. If the crows hit the survivors directly within 8 meters, it deals damage. If the crows hit a wall, they become another overbearingly confusing Dead by Daylight power. Now instead of dealing damage, the crows will swarm the survivors. What does this do? At a glance, about as much as a metaphor. They can still do objectives and leave the match. The main effect allows the swarm's aura to be revealed to you so that you can track your targets. It also inflicts debuffs from green add-ons like you give a shit about that. It more importantly deals damage if they're hit with a second crow. See? Now we actually care about it. How do you get rid of them? Survivors can hold down an action button to shoo them away while running. Doing this action removes the aura reading, but it restricts them from pallets and windows. But the alternative being death, I'd say they're gonna get rid of it. I'd be cautious about summoning all 3 birds though. The more you summon, the longer the cooldown, and the max cooldown is the length it takes for the survivor to repel the crows. If you're aiming to get someone through walls, I'd say set a single bird and try to get them with 2 separate hits. If you want to shut down a big loop, place 3 but in narrow sightline areas so that you're guaranteed to get a blow from up close. In terms of long-range map control, you can shoot these crows from wherever, and when they go through walls, I fucking mean it. The crows will fly unimpeded until the end of eternity. After hugging someone, you can choose 3 generators that might have some idiots on them, and then you can send a pie to land on their faces. The repel action isn't insane, but it does take a second, though it can be cut short if they jump inside a locker. Maybe this is the one behavior. The killer that will actually have a meaningful interaction with lockers. They can keep repairing while swarmed, but you'll be able to see them doing it, and you can send them a quick raspberry for real damage. And it helps that there are 500 cooks in the kitchen to help you do just that. As one last note, while the birds are on standby, they function like traps. If a survivor runs into it, they get swarmed. If they're already swarmed, they're hurt, and it requires 0 effort from you. Sounds familiar, but I won't dwell on it. Her power is probably another push for this nice little W meta. You get all 3 birds in a space, and the only reason the chase will stay there is if the survivor is a dumbass or you are. Of course, what's a power without minute little ways to mess with it? When I saw the artist's add-ons for the first time, I couldn't help but think, those look very boring, but a familiar kind of boring, like your shower curtain or probation officer. A few eons ago when I was making my twins video, I was eager to point out that Behavior ditched stacking buffs in favor of every add-on making a tiny change in one sole category. I really wish I bitched harder about that. You used to be able to do some goofy shit by taping together fun spirit add-ons, but apparently we don't just hate her when she's doing nothing. By the way, can we flex how far I've come? When the twins came out last year, I ended up making that video all night on Christmas Eve. Now I'm out here with my big expensive white box making the video all night but on a weekday. I even still call their last perk Coupe de Swoop because that video sucks, and that video sucks because I was making it all night on a Christmas Eve. In my brief time on the Chapter 22 PTB, I like to use the yellow add-ons that let me increase the duration I can keep the crows on standby before firing. It's the only 2 that do stack, might as well enjoy it. Whenever you plop a new crow into existence, it'll disappear if it goes 10 seconds without being given a purpose. By extending the time, you can leave the birds in narrow hallways to block them off for a brief moment. Okay, yes, I am thinking of the basement. Don't report me. The birds won't go up from the stairs, so it's the best use. And no, that's not fentanyl in my test, sir. It's just ink. As for purple add-ons, all of them are pretty good. Every character has a purple that I end up considering precious, but I think there are 2 here. One makes the crows infectious so that the whole family can swat at them, and another allows you to spawn a 4th crow, opening up a lot more tactical viability. If you can't tell, I value my dumb little plans, or maybe you haven't read enough yet. In fact, this year has been full of perks that I like, no matter how fucking bad they are. Her first perk is Grim Embrace. This gives you a token every time you hook a survivor for the first time. After all survivors have had their chance to meet the big spider in the sky, the generators are blocked for 30 seconds. And you know, I feel like this is the perk version of a Wendy's burger. There are so many worse options out there, but millions better. For me, the nail in the coffin is that there's no real synergy with killer powers that would make its viability go up or down. Only 3.85% of the killers can play the game without hooks, so it's applicable on almost everyone. The perk does reveal the obsession though. Could you imagine a version without this? It'd trigger and the game would go, ta-da! All the gens are blocked, and you'd reply, but I don't know where anyone is. Followed by behavior cracking a smile. That's true, but they know where you are. Like, I don't know, I'd rather just go to White Castle or toss some McNuggets in Buffalo Dry Rub. The other perk is Scourge Hook, fill in later. Thanks, Steven. This perk causes 4 special hooks to spawn. When you hook someone on them, the generator with the most amount of progress will explode for 15% and alert you if someone is on it. It has a lot in common with Nemesis's perk Eruption. The difference being that you don't have to kick the generator first and it triggers on hooks, not downs. Granted, when your competition is as shit as Eruption, you'll find this one to be fine. Out of the 3 artist perks, this is probably the best. 15% is nothing to sneeze at, and you can get to defending that generator by walking over to it or by firing a crow. The most complicated but most intriguing perk is Hex Pentimento. This perk will allow the killer to reanimate broken totems, and for each one, the survivors gain a debuff. Reanimating 1 token puts a 30% healing speed penalty, and with 2, you get a penalty on generator repairs. For 3, how fast they can recover. For 4, the exit gates, and if you get all 5, it blocks the totems, effectively making the hex permanent. Pentimento is an amazing perk. If it came out a year ago. This is one of those belief-shattering moments. Stuff behavior does that gives me an out-of-body experience because of how bad an idea it is. We are talking Titan from Megamind staring levels of what the fuck. The boon totems are the newest meta strat and they have steamrolled the game so far. Small explanation, boon totems are like hexes for survivors if you remove every negative that comes with them. They get to choose where they go, and if the killer finds it, the best they can do is remove the buff until the survivor puts it back up. If there's a hex on that totem already, the survivors can bless it and overwrite the hex on them, to which after you stuff out, they just go back to being regular totems and Okay. Because of these new perks, there's no real reason for survivors to ever break a regular totem ever again. The only perk that might have incentivized people to still destroy them is power creeped by the boon totems itself. If they do break totems, they're depriving their team of the power to place more boons. And because we live in the eye of a massive hypocrite, the killer can only reanimate each broken totem a single time. In some sense, Pentimento's best effect comes from just having 1 totem up, so it could still be somewhat acceptable, but I really doubt it. Because if a survivor has broken a totem, they likely already know where your new one is, and it's pretty easy to re-break. It feels like the easiest solution would be to cause the snuff totem action to also break the totem. It would make Pentimento an effective counter because the killer could just leave the totems broken until they're ready to reanimate all 5 of them. Look, I'm gonna end this on the small critique that I really don't know why there isn't a crow-related perk. If you're gonna take a political commentator, then turn her into a fucking bird! The least you could do is make 1 perk for them. Hell, you brought her to a place full of crows, which is great because it turns out the place she was raised in is the only continent on planet Earth where you can't find crows. God, I hope you did that on purpose because otherwise that's pretty embarrassing. Speaking of embarrassing, how many times do we have to do this add-on? 4 seconds of exposure, are you crazy? Look, I get that exposed add-ons are bullshit, but how much more bullshit than infinite healing without a proper method to stop it? The Deathslinger never got his red add-on to pop off even before they gave him the Clockwork Orange treatment. Nemesis's vaccine didn't light the world on fire either. Worst of all, with the twins you tried it, and once I called him in, even Santa was laughing at you. Per the jolly old man's advice, I'm gonna try to be positive. The artist can manage some control here. I'd recommend you get the crows on the survivor, then just smell their hair until they repel the crows, then claim the hit. They can't throw down pallets or windows, so it shouldn't be impossible, but they can always change their mind. To give you a hope pill, I think it will eventually get buffed. I mean, behavior was up 1 point with Pinhead's red add-ons, but then someone tweeted about Shirtless Jonah and they took it right back. On the other end is the Iridescent Feather. This will make you undetectable while your power is on cooldown at the cost of one of your birds. I'd put it on the same level as White Castle. There's a long list of perks that the artist synergizes with. It's one of my favorite things about her. Iron Maiden could work, so can I'm All Ears, and somehow Dead Man Switch. If you think I'm stupid, yes, maybe you missed the part where I hired someone to squawk. A lot of these perks vary based on what tactics are formed to face her. Well, okay, more than the one we're already using. The artist has the ability to mess with multiple spots on the map from wherever she is, which is in theory why Dead Man Switch could work. Perk description activate. I've brought you up enough times because I believe I can fix you. You hook the obsession, then sound out all 3 crows on the path of trouble, and you should somehow get them blocked. It can even counter the locker meta if the W key meta ever gets out of the way. It's okay though, there's a lot of perks that give you information on where to find active generators. You've got Barbecue and Gearhead. In terms of hatch endgame, I think the artist is even stronger than the twins in that regard. With the twins, you can leave one of each by both exit gates. Then quickly monitor the situation by swapping back and forth. Now imagine that with 3 victors and 1 probation officer. If you keep placing them at gates, there's not much the opposition can do except call you sweaty on the PTB. Sorry, after being on console for so long, this is a new experience to me. Point is that you can probably get a decent endgame build out of her if you really want to. I'd also recommend Hoarder, as she's one of the 3 killers that can actually do something with the information it gives you. Still, the birds don't do too well as objective control, but it's better than nothing. I already mentioned I'm all ears to help you land blows because I just made a Ghostface video, and with the death of my boy, this perk's got no home. But I think Nurse's Calling is a decent idea too. See someone healing at the edge of your heartbeat and tell them to knock that shit off. Unless they've got Circle of Healing. Then you need to waddle over and apologize. I'd hustle, the hypocrite is holding a gun after all. I'm also reasonably fond of Nemesis's perk Lethal Pursuer, which reveals the team right at the start, allowing you to hit multiple birds and get a nice snowball going. Honestly, anything like that works. And unironically, well, that's the tip of my advice. I got really nothing to say, you know? Every time I do a killer on the PTB, I'll have a totally different view on them in 2 months. Still mad I didn't tell you to put Hoarder on Pinhead. The more interesting question is, what saga is gonna happen next? I mean, come on, aren't you a little excited? Even just a little. It looks like the DDoSing arc has run its course. Dead by Daylight's got the trappings of a good Toonami show, power creep, and stakes that keep getting astronomically higher. If the alternative is becoming miserable with the game, we might as well learn to fucking watch it go, baby! Show me those sparks! Sorry, I'm off topic. Overall, the artist is gonna be one of the stronger killers. Call it Roby2311. Oh, what's that? I hear someone knocking at my door.
I'm easily excitable, completely undeniable, and sometimes unreliable. Don't ask me why, don't ask me why. I'm strange and I like it, that's just the way I am. I can't change, I can't hide it, that's just the way I am. Might as well get over it, but don't try to understand.